So I've been working with Anatomy Trains, which is Tom Myers of Maine's concepts of movement. I consider it the next generation in fitness with functional movement training. I use the application of Anatomy Trains in all of my fitness, whether I'm doing work on the reformers, the towers, weight training equipment, free weight, calisthenics. I apply it to everything so that people can get a better understanding of the way their body moves. And Tom Myers really encapsulated this beautifully with his work in Anatomy Trains for Body Workers. And I also have another video going a little deeper into the postural and phasic aspect of the Anatomy Trains. But I wanted to do this first for people who are working with me with my training so that they could understand it a little bit better. And superficial front line are the muscles in blue. Now again, this is Tom Myers' work, so there's going to be some other opinions out there on the way that the front line and the back line work. But the muscles that are shown, including rectus abdominis, which is not a core muscle, are the muscles that are used in a front line exercise. So for example, a non-weighted pike, bringing the shoulders towards the toes, that would be a superficial front line. So it's moving the body from toes to your shins and knees towards your hips and neck towards the chest and chest towards the hips. And that would be curling the body inward, but with no application of weight. It would have to be something very light to be effective into the abdominals. The front of the shin is not considered a postural muscle, but the deeper aspect is, and the front of the quadricep is. So, but the generation of the movement is just very, I tell people, think of it as resistance through water. It's very light, and that would be bending into the body. And then you have the superficial back line, which is the opposite. And the blue muscles you can see now, these are all postural muscles except for the middle of the back here. So there can be a slight application of weight to this, but this would be a swan dive, letting the body come into that reverse curve, almost into like that hyper extended position, but not severe, right? And it can have some weight application, but it doesn't need to. And so you're pointing the toes, you can gently bend the knees, and then you can move into that nice extended lower back and extended neck to get that body to curve up. And that's front line and back line. And if you're doing it, I'll show people how to do it with, moving forward and moving backward with some resistance so that they can feel just the lightness of the movement. And always thinking about swimming in water would be the best way. Doing the butterfly in the water would be the best way. Lateral line. This is the line like a regular fish swims. So it's curling to a C. Now, the sport that I can recognize the most with this would be skiing, right? Where you're moving into the turns. If you're a driver, race car driver, you would probably find yourself doing lateral line as well as you're moving into those curves. So this is the side of the neck. Again, it's sharing a little bit with that front line, and the oblique down the side of the leg and then down the side of the shin. So when you do things that you have to go sideways with, these muscles sometimes get a little bit weak, especially on the lower leg, and you may find that, especially going up on ladders, if you haven't really been working on ladders and you don't have that nice set to your body, you may move outward onto the pinky toe, and then you'll end up with a little bit of soreness in that lateral leg. So the lateral line is making you into a fish, and I will have people curve upward from their mat with their head and their legs so that they're doing that side swan, right? That side swan dive. So that's the lateral line, and it's one of those lines that you can really end up being sore from, because if you have some lateral line dysfunction, it's going to be different on each side. And then the neck. So I will have people that'll get headaches from this. I can't say more than when you come down from a lateral line movement, push the whole body down into the mat or the floor, because that will disengage the muscles that you just contracted, and it'll help from getting that counteraction of those muscles. I'll call it the reverberation of those muscles from that workout. And then you have the spiral line. Now, spiral line is your walking or running line. It's the opposite. So as your right leg comes forward, your left arm comes forward with the rib cage. And so you're moving opposite. Or the twist. If you watch somebody do the twist, they move their hips the opposite as their upper body. The arm line is not involved with this, so it doesn't matter where the arms go, but the arms love to go where the rib cage is when you're running. So you can see how it crosses over, and it also shares that oblique and that side lateral line, and again into some of that rib cage, but then it goes up the back of the leg into hamstring, and then up into those spinal erectors again. So it crosses and then goes back up and crosses back. So this is the line that I find the most difficult to correct on people. So when I'm doing work, I will do stationary rotations where you have your right leg forward and then you're moving the rib cage towards the right to try to open up the oblique, and I'll see where the client has more restriction, and then I try to really make them focus on that they're not moving past the restriction on the side that has more flexibility. More than likely, when you have your left leg forward and you rotate towards the left, it's going to be more flexible than the right. And that's because more than likely you're a right leg dominant and your body is in that position more often during the day. So it's in a long position at the lower back and also at the hip flexor. So I will have them work a little bit extra on the right side, just a few more, just to try to really open up that lower back and get that lateral line and spiral line of the right side to lengthen. And those are all of your muscles involved with that. And then your arm line is a good portion of your upper body: tricep, bicep, chest, lats, traps, rhomboids, shoulders, forearms. So anything that isn't involved with all the other parts of the front line, the back line, spiral line, and lateral line is on the arm line. And the deep arm line is going to be some of those postural muscles, that internal shoulder girdle, bicep, some of those deep forearm muscles. So you can see he has the levator scapula back here. That's your rotator group, and rhomboids. Now, rhomboids is an interesting group because technically they classify it as a phasic muscle, and I'm not sure that that's how he's interpreting it here too, is that it is a little bit more of an upper core muscle. So I will try to get people to draw their shoulder blades back and to hold it there and to keep rhomboids in a little bit shorter of a position. But all of these other muscles that you see with the arm being held out, those are your core muscles of your upper body. And if you push your thumbs together, you will activate that core. It's very cool. So you could push any of your fingers together, but the minute you push your thumbs together, you'll feel these muscles all the way up into the shoulder girdle, and then you'll feel scalenes go up into your neck, and then you may feel it come down to the diaphragm and connect the lower core to the upper core, which is next. I'm going to do deep front line. So the deep front line goes through that lower leg, actually starts at that big toe. I'll have people hook their heels together to really feel it, just in case they pronate out onto their toe, onto that pinky toe. And then you can see that inner thigh is part of it, all except the longest muscle of adductors. There's one, I believe it's longest, that is phasic. And then the deep pelvic floor, psoas into iliacus. You can see these spinal muscles, the diaphragm muscle, the pericardium muscle, the scalene muscles, all the longus coli, the masseter muscle, temporalis. So when you clench your jaw, push your thumbs together, put your heels together and stand up onto your toes and shoot towards the sky like a rebound, you will activate all of these muscles. So it is, the best example I can give people as a visual is a music box where the ballerina goes up and down, but then she circles and she moves around in a circle. So her moving up and down is her deep line. And then her moving around in a circle on the floor are all of her other lines of movement. And that's how the body perceives that movement. It wants to keep you in check, upright, as you do everything. The minute that you start leaning into a movement in the wrong direction, sideways, forward, or even sometimes backwards, you're going to have overuses. So we want to keep the head over the hips, over the ankles, right? Now, say you're riding a horse. You still have to consciously have that deep line into the pelvic girdle onto the horse, and then you ground yourself into the big toe and into the foot dropping into the heel, right? So it's exactly the same. You still have the grounded force of the foot into the stirrup and then into the heel, which is your deep line, keeping the heels gently in, right? That's how we see those fantastic riders. So any sport that you do, the application can go to anything that you do. If I'm outside and I'm shoveling, when I go to pick up my stone, if I engage into a grounded position first and then lift, I'm going to be using my core. If I go to pick up a rock is a better example. I'll actually move my energy into the rock and ground myself and then lift with my postural muscles. If you do it a dozen times, your body will start moving into those patterns of neuromuscular contraction. So you have to build that body brain to muscle function up, which is why it's functional therapy, functional fitness. You have to build that so that it becomes faster and faster, and then you just do it repetitively without thinking. If I go out there and I start shoveling with my upper body, I'm going to end up either injuring myself or overexerting myself because I'm using muscles that don't like to be loaded. None of the arm muscles like to be loaded. They want to be lighter. The deep core muscles of the arm line will engage in a loading situation, but it has to be thoughtful. You can't be repetitive. You're better off having the lower body being utilized with the upper body. Same thing with vacuuming. And I used to make fun of the people who worked for me with the, I'm not going to say I made fun of them, but I tried to make them understand when you vacuum, you're not supposed to use your arm. You break the vacuum because the vacuum isn't being used the way that it's meant to be used. You use the whole body to vacuum, and then the vacuum goes back and forth with you. If you just use the arm, you're constantly pulling and pushing on the vacuum. And if you change that, you'll also get a workout. So you're moving with the vacuum, moving back with the vacuum, and then the whole vacuum moves back and forth with you. So that's just an example that I can give people, and you can apply it to anything, and it works. I've been running my farm for 20 some years now, and I apply this to everything that I do. And I'm not going to say that I'm perfect, because I am far from perfect. But when you get the applications from your brain into everything that you do, you keep yourself working more efficiently. Then when you do tire out, you notice it quicker, because it's a whole body tired, whole body. I don't want to say exhaustion, but your whole body is working towards being muscularly engaged. And so you stop more often to take a break, rather than using the muscles that aren't supposed to be loaded, which may recover in between a little bit faster, and then you just keep going, and then before you know it, you're broken. The last line is the functional line, and this is the line that can be utilized. It's all phasic muscle. These are all fast twitch muscle fibers, and these are the things that can be used when we're running, when we're swimming, when we're doing anything that is light, unloaded, and very active. The pectoralis major muscle, but minus the upper part and that is moving into the deltoid. The latissimus dorsi on the back, that big wing muscle. The glutes, the outer part of the quadricep, that inside part of the thigh, and the rectus abdominal. Now, that's adductor longus. I think that's what I said. Adductor longus is the phasic one. So these are the muscles that I constantly talk to people, and that sartorius is in there too, which is wraps from the front of the hip to the inside of the knee. These are the muscles that when I tell people, I want you to think about these when you're doing your rebounding, when you're doing your fast walking, squeeze your glute, find your abs, feel your chest, pull your arms down into your hips, and find all these muscles, because those muscles don't like to be loaded, but they're fast twitch, and they do like fast movement. They're going to tire easily, but you can train them so that if every time they go out, they're going to be able to get a little bit more endurance. They're very long. They have lots of ability to be able to build with longer fibers. So the two things that I'll finish on are me working on somebody and feeling the dysfunction. If you're training correctly, when I'm working on you, all of your big, strong postural muscles that you're working with that are part of your front line, back line, and those are in another video, those should feel tense, but they should be easy for me to release. So I should feel the strength of them, but then I'm going to be able to work them out. I'll be able to go through, warm them up, and then within 5 minutes, I can start to flatten them out. Your movement muscles, like these right here, these functional muscles, they should feel soft, and I'm not going to say mushy, but they should be kind of like dough. When I feel them, I should be able to just move into them, and they're nice and fluffy. Number 2, if I find that I cannot release a muscle that is supposed to be strong and loaded, it's because it's weak and it's gotten overused, and those muscle fibers aren't able to recover. They're not strong enough. They're not dense enough. If I go to a functional muscle like these, and it's hard, it's got muscle in there that's thick, and it's become postural, it's because your body is out of alignment. You either have a lower back arch problem and you're in the wrong arched position and you're leaning forward, or you are using your body incorrectly during fitness. When you're squatting, you're moving into your knees. When you're doing any type of work, maybe you're moving too fast, maybe you're too loaded, maybe your range of motion isn't what it's supposed to be. So that's why I'm making some of these corrective fitness videos for you. So that's the understanding of anatomy trains on my note. My wonderful Tom Myers of Maine may have corrected some of what I said because he's the one who created this. And I always encourage people to go to his website and look at his work. You can do CEU credits, or you can just, get more information. It's a very wonderful program. And so that is the way I work with it in my program, so that before you work with me, or now that if you are working with me, you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about when I say these things, so you can get a little bit more out of what we do. All right, very good. Thank you for listening, and I will see you soon.